Coming up next on Democracy Does, the Civic Power Playbook. Why do you think it's important for people to feel understood and valued?
Wow. The one thing that is constant is our worth, our significance as people. And I fundamentally believe that we're not going to see worth in someone else beyond what we see in ourselves. We might recognize the value that they can bring or what they've gone through or what they have, but we're not going to see worth in them as a person any more than what we see in the mirror. So it has to start with us first so that we can see it in other people.
That's up next. Welcome to Democracy Does, the Civic Power Playbook, a podcast that cuts through the noise to explain what's really happening in our democracy. Each episode breaks down key issues with insight from policy experts and change makers, giving you clear tips to take action. Whether you're fired up or feeling stuck, you're in the right place to get informed and get inspired, because democracy works best when we all participate. Hi, everybody, and thank you again for joining us for another edition of Democracy Does, the Civic Power Playbook. Today, we are joined by Jeff Koziatek. He is a keynote speaker, a leadership consultant, and he is the author of several books, including Blueprint for Value, which helps leaders untangle their worth from their work so they can make confident, grounded, and really smart decisions and live aligned and have their lives feel filled with purpose and peace. Basically being grounded and believing in what you do. Thank you so much, Jeff, for having the time to do this with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled. When we met at ASAE's annual meeting, just your energy and the why behind what you do was just really, really powerful. So I've been looking forward to this conversation for months. No pressure.
Thank you. No pressure, no pressure. It means a lot to me. And I have to say that's very kind of you to mention. But when I went by the booth, everybody was surrounding Jeff. He's magnetic. He gets a crowd going. And that's why we connected. I said, who is this guy? You know, when you're in a huge conference space and it's that din and people are just going through booths and people kind of avoid booths because you feel like you're going to get sucked into something you don't want to do. And then there's Jeff who pulls
Well, we had
in.
Plinko. I mean, who doesn't
Yes.
who doesn't like Plinko?
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you are. Well, you're a convener. You're able to bring people together. And one of the things that I think attracts a lot of people to you is that you understand how to make people feel seen and heard and valued. And one of the reasons why I wanted you on my podcast is because we talk about how there's such a divide in terms of how people relate to each other, how they connect.
Yeah.
And so much of it goes down to what your beliefs are, but also how you believe in yourself and feeling valued and heard. Why do you think it's important for people to feel understood and valued?
Wow. Okay, when I think worth and value are two different things. There's the worth that is in us as human beings, and then there's the value that we bring to the marketplace, the value that we bring to our relationships. And I believe that the value that we bring, that can go up and down, and not everybody brings the same level of value. But the one thing that is constant is our worth, our significance as people. And I fundamentally believe that we're not going to see worth in someone else beyond what we see in ourselves. We might recognize the value that they can bring or what they've gone through or what they have, but we're not going to see worth in them as a person any more than what we see in the mirror. So it has to start with us first so that we can see it in other people. On a scale of 0 to 10, if I see myself as a 10, I'm more likely to see you as a 10. Then there's no competition. We can drop the judgment stick and then genuinely connect and lift each other up.
I love that you say that, because one of the key points in your book, The Blueprint for Value, is you have something called personal worth account.
Yeah.
And that's where you take stock of what you believe your worth is. How did you come
Yes.
up with that?
Well, people either look for their worth or their significance or identity, either outside of themselves or inside of themselves, right? And most people go outside of themselves, and we look for it most commonly in our performance. Look at what I can do, look at what I've done, let me tell you everything that I know. Or we look for it in our appearance, our property, our circumstance, our relationships. And the problem is with that, it's showing up with a scarcity mindset. Like, we don't have enough here, so we have to go prove ourselves. We have to go earn more. And then whatever we get, we have to hold on to and protect because we work really hard for that. The other option is to look for worth internal. And if it's internal, if it is intrinsic worth, that never changes. It doesn't change when I make a mistake. It doesn't change when my circumstances work for me or against me. Like, that remains constant. The problem is our perception of that can change on a moment to moment basis. So if I'm standing on intrinsic worth that is a 10, no matter what, it is now, has always been, and will always be a 10, my perception of that might shift if I'm lacking sleep, if my diet's off, if I'm not taking care of myself and doing things that I enjoy, if I'm not, if I make a mistake, I might get sucked back into the performance identity and start really doubting who I am and what I'm capable of. So the PWA,
Mm-hmm.
that
personal
part right
worth
there,
account. Yeah.
the personal worth account, that goes up and down. So the book is designed to help us keep our perception high to match the reality that we're a 10. We know that this doesn't change, but we can do things to improve our perception of it and keep that up. And so that's why we got 52 habits.
Yes. And I think that's really important because in many respects, when divisions happen among people, a lot of it is because there's a scarcity mindset. If you
Yeah,
don't think you have enough, then you start to illustrate some of the habits that you say we need to fight against.
100%. And if we're showing up thinking that we're not enough unless I do something or unless I'm part of a specific group, one of those external sources is relationships.
Mhm.
And that's either how we're connected to other people, maybe as a CEO or as a parent or a sibling or as a friend, or maybe it's not just how, but it's who we know.
Right.
I'm significant because I'm connected to name drop, name drop, name drop.
Mhm.
Or it's the social groups that we're a part of. Like,
That's
maybe
right.
it's the homeowners association, maybe it's the political party, maybe it's the religious group, maybe it's the club or all of that stuff. And when we're out here and that's the source of our worth, our significance of who we are, then it puts us in this place of judging everybody else. So we're no longer present to genuinely connect. Now we're sizing everybody up. But if we're standing on intrinsic worth and we're maintaining a very high personal worth account, then we can drop that judgment stick. Now we're seeing people as people, not objects that we need to manipulate or obstacles we need to overcome. It changes everything. And it opens up the possibility for compassionate curiosity.
Yes, compassionate curiosity is beautifully said because I think it seems as if there needs to be more of that now. But how do you get to that point? What did it take for you to get to that point? And what do you think it will take for others to get to that point?
Well, that is a loaded question, Rob, and I'm really
Yeah.
glad you asked that. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So, well, for me, it meant walking the walk, right? Growing up, I got the message that said, no one ever said it, but it was like, I wasn't enough unless I did something. So I spent my whole life attempting to prove that I was worth your time. So I became a massive workaholic. I did not say no ever. Any opportunity came along, I said yes. I took on everything that I could and more, to the point where I was regularly burning out. I was missing my life. You probably heard the phrase work now, play later. Well, that's how I was running my life. I was working all the time and there was no play. I thought I'll play later, but later never came. And the burnout got so real that I started looking at my life insurance policy thinking, I can't do enough. Maybe this is a better way to take care of the people that I really do love, who I was currently sacrificing in the pursuit of more work so that we could play later. Like it's not a sustainable solution, and definitely not a sustainable lifestyle.
Right. And
And
not a
so
healthy mindset.
no, no. So when I sat down with a coach and he helped shift my perspective on that, instead of performing for purpose, instead of performing for my significance and identity, instead standing on purpose and performing from it, that changed everything for me. Everything. Then all of a sudden, I had solid ground that would not shift regardless of circumstances or my choices. It was always constant. So I had something I could reliably stand on and face uncertainty and change with conviction. And the stuff that I learned was not just about work, but when my wife faced cancer, when she had massive medical surgery, like all of this stuff took time or demanded time from work to take care of family so that we could move forward together. And making that kind of a change is really hard if performance is who I am. To be able to stop and step back and take care of family and what's really important becomes very, very difficult, right?
It sounds like, yeah, absolutely. It gave you perspective and it forced you to assess the why behind everything that you do.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm really grateful that meeting my coach happened in 2012, because that's when everything started to shift for me. And then when my wife faced her medical challenge in 2018, I was better prepared for that. That's why when we faced COVID and the massive impact on a performing business that's built all around large groups of people coming together, I was able to better navigate that. That's why when she had cancer in 22, we were able to better navigate that because we had already built out this foundation. So for me, it was recognizing, oh, if I'm standing on this cornerstone of purpose, performing from it instead of for it, the quality of my work improved, my relationships improved, all of that. So when I see other people, it's the same thing. It really comes down to a choice. And you can succeed and experience incredible rewards when you're out performing for purpose. There's just a really big cost. Mm-hmm. There's significant consequences for that. And if somebody is comfortable doing that, that's fine. That's just not for me. And I know there's a lot of other people out there that don't want to sacrifice their relationships. They don't want to sacrifice their health. They don't want to sacrifice living now for a promise of a later that may never come. And for those people that are willing to make that choice and they're ready to make that choice, that's where I come in.
And it's important to note your background isn't just simply as a speaker. You had an acting background and a performance background for groups. And I say that because you were very public facing. As a public facing person, it's hard not to feed off of what external validation can do for you and how that can shift and confuse you. But this applies to anyone who feels like they are figuring out how to navigate the world, or if they are, again, coming from a place of scarcity. It's all about, as you say, and tell me if I'm understanding this correct, assessing your why and what is your true purpose. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, when I work with my coaching clients, we build out this, and this is basically your compass. Mm-hmm. And when you know your worth and where it comes from, when you know your values and what they mean, you know your identity as a human being, not your roles and responsibilities. And when you have a clear understanding of your purpose, your why and your how, your vision and your mission, then you've got an anchor. You've got true north. You know exactly where that is in any situation you face.
Yes.
Any situation you face. When you've got that. And so helping people build that out, then when we're having conversations with people that disagree with us, that have different opinions or might look different or might have a different lifestyle or different religious beliefs or political leanings, or they just live in a different geographic area. We're able to connect with a person, not all the stuff we see on the outside. And
Yes.
that changes everything.
It does change everything because I think that is the connector coming from it from the place that you were discussing. And I mentioned that because when you refer to your compass, you have four main pillars in your book, which make up that wheel. And
Yeah.
that's engage, equip, empower, and encourage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And
And
they build, right?
yeah.
I mean, engage is all about being honest and taking an honest assessment of where we're at. How did we get here? What's going on? Being able to look under the hood. That's really difficult when we find our worth and our performance, because then being honest if something's not working can be really damaging. And just we're like, oh my gosh, I made a mistake, or this thing that I put all of my marbles in is not working. And so then we start to lie to ourselves, or we start to just pretend like we don't see it. So when we're standing on intrinsic worth, we're able to engage and see the behavior for what it is, not who we are, to see the mistakes for what they are, not who we are, and to see the circumstances for what they are, not indicative of where we can go, our potential. So we start there. And then by taking that honest assessment, then we're able to equip and get the right tools for the right job. What am I missing? What am I doing well that might need to be improved? What kind of mentors and resources do I need to add? And then we're able to empower. And the empower part is really about stepping out and taking opportunities to lead, succeed, or fail without judgment. And that's so hard, especially when we tie our worth and significance to our performance. If it's anchored out here, we can't make mistakes. Because if we make mistakes, our worth seems to drop.
That's
And we
right.
can't have that because everybody wants to be a 10.
Right.
So, right? So if it's out here, then we don't take the risk, we don't grow, we don't lean into the discomfort for the growth. We play safe and we play small. And that doesn't work long term.
Right.
And then the encouragement piece is recognizing that it is a growth process. And so we affirm what's going on. We recognize what's happening. We call that out. We're complimenting it. Or in this case, in the book, when we start recording all of the progress, then we can hold on to that. If we don't write stuff down and encourage ourselves along the way, then we're just left holding on to all the negative stuff. I mean, I'd be willing to bet if I were to ask you and anybody listening or watching right now, do you remember, like, name 5 mistakes you've made in the last week? And I'm pretty sure those will come real fast.
Yes. Yes.
But then if I asked, well, can you name 5 things that you did really well over the last week? Like if we can get there, it just takes a little bit more time.
Right. That's
if we get there at all.
Yes.
And so part of encouraging is to write that stuff down, because if we don't write it down, then the victories and the wins, we just lose them.
Mm-hmm.
We just lose them. So we write that down and keep going. I think when you watch America's Got Talent, like the first couple episodes, those people were encouraged to go out there before anybody bothered to engage with them to see if they belonged on the show, equipping them with the tools they needed, and then empowered them with an opportunity to practice before getting in front of a national audience.
Right.
I think it's really important that we engage first so we can properly equip, and then we take calculated steps to empower ourselves and encourage ourselves along the way.
I think those key pillars are very important, not only for us, for our own growth, because it forces us to not only take personal stock and accountability, but it also encourages us to have self-compassion. But then when you have that type of self-compassion, it allows you to reach out to others and build that relationship. And I mention that because when I was reading your book, one of the things that you have so many great nuggets in this book. One of them was, flexibility. That's number 27 in the empowerment, in the empower/ownership piece of it. When you think that failure, changing course, people think that changing course is equivalent to failure, inadequacy, or worthlessness. And it's not. And it goes back to what you're saying about that attachment to the outside, believing that, oh, if I make a bad decision, it's going to be bad. And if I look like I made a bad choice, do I look like a failure? And it's not. And I think when we have that grace and space for ourselves, we can give it to other people, which is
Oh my
needed.
gosh. 100%, Robin.
Yeah.
100%. I would I would say that that's why the what is not on the compass,
Yeah.
because the what changes. So
Hmm.
what worked yesterday might not work today. So it's okay to
Correct.
let go of that and
Right.
grab now. If we anchor ourselves to our performance and how we do things, then I can't let go of that.
Right.
When I was growing up, my parents said, find something you love to do and make that your job. I love art and people, Robin. Art and people.
Yeah.
That's a big filter.
Yes.
So that led me to become a juggler, a stilt walker, a fire performer, a game show host, a stage MC. I produced video. I had an event management company. I did booking agency stuff. I was shooting photography, fine art, portrait photography. I was acting. I was doing voiceover acting, like managing national touring acts. Like, yes, 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 all the time.
Right.
And then somebody said, you need to focus. I'm like, how do you focus if you are what you do? Like, how do you stop doing something if what you do makes you who you are? There's so many books out there that say you are what you do. Your actions define you. The choices you make, that's you. I say no because
Absolutely. I completely agree. But please, you tell me why you say that.
no, no, no. I feel like I'm monologuing.
No,
You
I
go.
asked.
Tag
I'm
team.
interviewing you, Jeff.
Oh, right, right. I just, if we are what we do, we can't stop. We just
Right.
can't stop. It's
That's
why
right.
a professional athlete gets to the end of their career, and if they are what they do, that makes them them. They don't retire until they're forced out of the game,
Yes.
and then after that, they have to come back to the game, either as a manager or front office or broadcast or something, because that's who they are. And apart from that, you see a massive rise in death, divorce, and depression. You see
That's
that
right.
all over the place in retirement.
Right. Yeah,
But
they're
if
lost. Go
Yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
totally lost, which is why the compass is so important, because if we're anchored to that, the what can change. And in
Yes.
the case of the professional athlete, they have the choice to stay in the game or they have the choice to leave rather than being bound to it.
Yes.
If we're retiring from something that we did for 30 years, 40 years, how do we move on to the next piece of our life?
Yes.
It's the compass bit. If without that, it's really hard to move on, and you see a massive deterioration in quality of life
Yes.
and passion and all of that stuff. That's why
Yeah.
I'm huge on helping leaders break free from that performance prison. It's
Yes.
rough.
It's true. And one of the things that my mom will always tell me, for the longest time, like you, I would just chase, 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 because there's a chasing aspect to it. And
Yeah.
then when you get really clear about why it is you're doing what you're doing, it's a game changer. And you sound like you have, in many respects, unlocked that for yourself, and now you're offering that to other people. Have you found that? Actually, let me ask you this. What has been the greatest breakthrough for you when you, not only for yourself, but for someone that you have coached? Do you have something that's been the greatest breakthrough?
The, the greatest breakthrough.
Hmm.
Wow.
Or the most moving, the most powerful, the most memorable?
There was a guy I was coaching who always dreamed about himself as a 12-year-old boy, and he was in his late 40s. And one day he came in and he said, Jeff, I was having a dream last night. And he's like, this probably doesn't really fit, but in my dream, I was me. I was me, and I was making decisions as me. And I'm just like, holy cow, on a subconscious level, you've leveled up and you are no longer living in the past. You are owning your present in the moment. It wasn't very long after that before he made a massive professional shift and moved away from something that he had been doing for decades. He found a lot of love and expression in, and he thought that was his purpose, right? He was chasing purpose in his work, and it shifted to now he was performing from purpose, got into a completely different industry, flourished over there, and now he's managing like 50 other people that are doing that. And it's light years away from where he was before, and the level of peace that this guy has and the connection he has with his wife and kids is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Another one, there's a guy I was working with who said anytime, he get on the plane, just to get on the plane, he would need to drink and take Xanax just to calm the anxiety because it was so high. And to work with him and then have him call me up and say, Jeff, I did 5 flights this week, no meds, no alcohol, no anxiety. Like that level of freedom, because that impacts how he leads his family, how he leads his work, how he shows up for himself. I mean, that stuff is big.
Yes.
On a personal level,
Yes.
I felt like I had to do 350 shows every year, because anytime we talked about that, people would be like, wow, that's a lot of shows, Jeff. Do you know how many days there are in a single year? And I'm like, yes, I do. Aren't I amazing?
Right.
Like, look how busy I am. And I kept missing my life. And now I'm at a spot where I can say no and I can say not yes. And I feel really good about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a spot where I am not pursuing busy. I am pursuing effectiveness. It's all about being more effective, not being busy. And to be able to take vacations and to go to Greece with my wife, or just to sit down and watch movies with my kids, or just to go for a walk. Like that kind of freedom has totally leveled up my experience of life and my work. And I don't think you could put a price tag on that.
Not at all. How has it changed how you relate to other people?
Before, I used to be really judgy. And because for me, it was all about performance and appearance. Those were the 3 big blocks for me. And I'm constantly looking around to see what other people are doing. I'm constantly comparing myself. And I was constantly positioning myself to put out the best image. And when people would do something that was not helpful, when people would take action that would actually hurt somebody else, I used to be very judgmental of that. And now, recognizing that all behavior has meaning and that we are more than what we do, allows me to look at people's actions and see the action for what is, but then get really curious as to what is driving the action, and to connect with the person underneath. What's missing here that is causing us to make it up over here? Mm-hmm. And that level of compassion and the shift from judgment, I think, has made my relationships more close. And I am less reactive when people do things that I don't agree with, that I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Outstanding. Thank you so much. Jeff, where can people learn more about you and get your book and all the good stuff?
Well, they can go to coreauthenticity.com.
Perfect.
Coreauthenticity.com. And you can check out my keynotes. You can check out the coaching packages. You can check out the Inner Circle, which is an online coaching membership program helping us to provide more accountability, more community, and tools so people can stay on course and stay aligned to where they want to go. And I think we still have some deals running. So there's a link for some holiday deals. You can check out the books, the podcast, all kinds of stuff. Coreauthenticity.com.
Okay. One last thing I always like to ask my guests. What are 3 things that you would recommend, or 3 power plays you would tell people in terms of connecting, understanding, trying to be more empathetic to someone who is on a completely different side or point of view than you? As this is a civic power playbook, I call these power plays. What would 3 power plays be from Jeff Koziatek?
3 power plays. Well, number 1, don't try. I know that's going to sound like a Yoda thing, but don't try to be more empathetic. Either be more empathetic or let's be real in that we're not going to be. Like, just commit.
Be honest and commit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because there's no trying. Either you're being empathetic or you're not, and you're putting in effort to become more empathetic or you're not. So I would say, number one, commit to making the decision. Number two, if you're going to empathize with somebody else on the other side of the aisle, or that has a very different opinion about something, it starts with how you see yourself. You have to see worth in you before you see worth in somebody else. You've got to start there. Because if on a scale of 0 to 10, if I see myself as an 8 and I show up to engage in conversation or a relationship with somebody else with that deficit, no matter how big that gap is, whether it's 2 points or 5 points or just 0.000067, as long as there's a gap, I will be tempted to slide into what I call the challenger mindset, and I will be comparing, competing, contending, and controlling everything. So, number one, don't try. Number two, see worth in yourself so that you can see that in the other person. And number three, recognizing that all behavior has meaning and that we're not what we do. I'm not what I do. You're not what you do. And so if we can separate the performance that's bugging us from the performer, the person, then we can then connect with the person, and then we can resolve this. Can I give you a bonus number 4?
Please do.
Offering safety.
And what does that mean?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Robin, as an entertainer, I would travel all over the world, all over the country, and international, because Toronto is on the other side, right?
Okay.
And no matter where I was, whether it was kids, adults, mixed audiences, my job, regardless of if people wanted to laugh, if it was just entertainment, or if it was education, or if it was edutainment, the number one job was always to offer safety. If I could give the audience an offer of safety for them to be themselves, then they would drop the mask they would wear for survival, and then we could have a genuine connection. Yes. And I got to meet people as they are, not as they pretend to be on the street. And so in that moment, I'm able to share ideas and understanding freely. Then after the show, you'd watch people layer back up. And I thought, oh my gosh, now you got to live the rest of the year behind a mask. So if we can, when we're talking to other people, make an offer of safety by separating performance from performer, then we can have that sharing of ideas and understanding. Then people are more open to share what's going on and why they're doing this. Yeah. And then we can have that genuine conversation, and we can explore possibilities. And if we need to stop doing something and start doing something else, we can make that pivot because we're more than what we do.
Yes.
And recognizing that it is just an offer of safety. You can't make somebody feel safe. But if we can make the offer of safety, then we can have that connection. And we do that with two things. We affirm worth in the other person, and we show ourselves to be trustworthy. This is something that I speak on. There's also a book. It's the sequel for one. Number 2, there it is. Yeah. This is how we reveal and affirm worth in others. That's written for corporations and like within the workplace, but you can grab some of those tips and the habits and use those with people that you're just meeting on the street.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeff Koziatek, who is founder of Core Authenticity. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Are you kidding? Thank you. This has been a blast. We should do this again. Robin Hamilton for the win.
And now here are Jeff's top power plays. First, commit to being empathetic. It may go a long way when it comes to reaching across the aisle. Also, know your value. Plus, don't confuse what you do with who you are. And his bonus tip, when reaching out to someone whose views are completely different than your own, let them know that this conversation is in a safe space. If you want to learn more about Jeff and his work, go to coreauthenticity.com. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you're feeling a little more hopeful, a little less stuck, and maybe even inspired to take action. because democracy does work when we all participate. And don't forget, sign up for our newsletter to get updates on when our next episode drops. You can go to my website, democracydoes.com. And as a bonus, if you haven't gotten one, a free and easy tip sheet on how to get involved. Until next time, I'm your host, Robin Hamilton.